Hey everybody, welcome back to When Harry Met Board Games, where we feed our people with relatable content and our victory condition is your satisfaction. I'm Harry and today we'll be playing through another game. Today I'll be playing through Star Trek Fleet Captains, this massive box right here. And this is what the game looks like set up. This is a two-player game where one player takes the side of the Federation and the other player takes the side of the Klingons, and they're engaging in combat, in scientific missions, in political intrigue and diplomacy throughout the galaxy. However, I will be playing this game with a solo variant. This is not an official solo variant. This is a fan-made solo variant that I found on BoardGameGeek.com's forums for this game. And there are a couple iterations or newer editions of these rules. I've kind of made an amalgamation of these rules to my liking, and I've also modified a few things. So for example, they recommend that you use your typical standard size of the board, which is comprised by these modular hexagons here. However, I do have a slightly smaller setup than what is usually the case. Now, let's see what else. The goal of the game is to, after 10 rounds, the human player plays 10 rounds to try to get to 10 victory points. And you accomplish victory points through a plethora of ways. It's a little bit of a sandbox style game in that you can kind of do your own thing, take your own path. And there are some ways for the Klingon, which will be the AI player, to subtract points from your total at the end of the game. Now, I will be playing a little bit differently. I find that a 10-round game is a little too quick, so I play 12 rounds, and I try to get to 12 points by those 12 rounds. So first of all, you start by drafting your ship. And unlike regular two-player Star Trek Fleet Captains, where you get a certain amount of ships to comprise your fleet equal to the amount of points you're working for, in the solo game, you only have one ship you control, and you pick whichever one you want. The larger the ship, which probably means it's more powerful, the easier the game is. The smaller the ship, the harder the game will be. So I chose the USS Enterprise, the original here. And I've got size 6. This is a size 6. It's as big as the ships get here. And this card here basically gives you the stats of the ship. It gives you a special ability. It says that the USS Enterprise has 9 lives. If the Enterprise is destroyed, you roll 2 dice. And on a roll of 12, it is not destroyed. Instead, return it to your reinforcement pool as at red alert status. So that's interesting. This is only really relevant in a two-player game where your ships get destroyed and you're constantly reinforcing. In the solo variant, if your ship ever gets destroyed, you will lose. So I would modify this power accordingly because of that. So also, based on the size, it tells you how many starting missions are in your missions deck, because each player is going to have their own missions deck. And there's 3 types of mission. The green corresponds to science missions, the yellow corresponds to influence or political missions, and the red corresponds to combat missions. So as you can see here, the Enterprise will have 3 science missions, 2 yellow missions, and 1 combat mission. Now, the solo variant recommends, for the sake of scoring, that you multiply these by 3. So instead of having 3 science, we would have 9 science. Instead of having 2 influence, we would have 6 influence, and instead of having 1 combat, we would have 3 combat, right? So there is that. And we have our starting missions deck here, and you start the game with 3 missions physically and visibly available. Some of these are secret missions, but that again is irrelevant in solo play. Now, if you look at the stats of the Enterprise, first of all, you have 3 different sections. You have the white background, the yellow background, and the red background. This determines, or this reflects the alert status of the ship. If the ship is in white, they're all good. Everything, all systems are go. However, you have yellow alert and red alert. And finally, there is destruction, right? Your ship can take up to 3 damage. Each damage moves it to the next color-coded section. But once it takes a 3rd damage, it is completely destroyed. Now, there are 4 stats to look out for. There's weapons, which is relevant for combat. There are sensors, which are relevant to lots of different tests you'll be taking out of the game. There are engines, and there are shields. Now, as you can see, I do have this paper clip on it, and that's to track where I am, because you're going to be constantly making power adjustments and shifting where your priority will lie as far as your stats are concerned, which is manipulating this power adjustment is a huge factor in this game. Now, these are HeroClix miniatures. However, these are very fiddly and hard to manipulate. So instead, I've chosen to use the paper clip. I've seen other people use it, and that's what I've decided to do. So we're going to start the ship here, right here in the middle, where its engines are high and all the other stats are relatively low, but we really want to start the game with movement because your engines are the stat that's ready for movement. Now, the rules, the solo variant, recommends that you start the game off with your ship fully crewed. So a ship can accommodate up to 4 crew members in each of the 4 respective titles. So for example, we have 1 captain, and in our case, this will be James Tiberius Kirk. He has a special ability here. Now, all of these cards can be used for crew, combat, or OPS, operations, which is kind of like a catch-all category. But they cannot be used for all of these, right? They can only be used for one of these. So this guy here is your crew member. If you ever want to use your crew member, once assigned to a ship, gives you a permanent ability. So for example, for Captain Kirk, he's going to give you +2 weapons. And whenever this ship completes an influence mission, which is one of the yellow missions, he scores an additional victory point, which is great. However, if at any point I wanted to discard him from my ship and instead use him for his combat action, he would add 4 shields and help protect the ship. We also have Leonard McCoy, which is our specialist. You can only have 1 specialist. And he's a crew and an OPS. And in particular, he's an interrupt. Interrupt are rare abilities that actually let you interrupt a particular action, because these cards can be played before a combat. They can be played before another engine or systems test. But they usually cannot be played to interrupt something that's happening unless they say the word interrupt, right? So we've got Leonard McCoy. We've got Montgomery Scott, who as a crew member gives us, he's an engineer, by the way, our one and only engineer on the ship. He gives us a permanent addition of 2 engines to our stats. And then finally, we have my favorite, Mr. Spock, who's our officer. And he does have an interrupt to add 5 sensors to us. But you would have to discard this card. But if you keep him on your ship as his officer, he gives you +3 sensors. And if this ship is destroyed, you can discard Mr. Spock to prevent it. And if you do, the ship gets to red alert instead. So it still will be in red alert, but at least you can prevent the destruction of the ship. So that is awesome. So those are my starting crew. Now we will shuffle my deck. And the way the game recommends is you have these 10 different command decks in the game, and you choose 4 of them. Each of the command decks have 10 cards. So you will end up having a deck of 40 cards for your supply, and do the same thing for your opponents. However, instead of doing 40 and 40 or 4 command decks, I do 30 and 30. So I have a smaller deck, but one that I feel comfortable knowing the probabilities of what's in there, right? So this is my deck of cards. We start the game with a starting hand of 4 cards, and I will keep my starting hand right here to not be confused with my ship and its crew members. All right, and I've got some Sensor Overlord, Battle Challenge, the Doctor, and Emergency Power. I'll describe what those cards do whenever it is relevant. Okay, so there's that. We also have these encounter cards. We shuffle a deck of encounter cards for different potential encounters that we'll be having throughout the game as we explore unknown space. And finally, again, the Klingon deck, which is comprised, in my case, of 30 cards, and the Klingon ships. Now, this game does recommend, if you want added difficulty, to start the game with a Klingon ship already present on their end of the space, on their command post. But I feel that that's a little bit of a challenge, so I'm not going to do that. Now, there will be opportunities for Klingons to appear out of nowhere, and we'll see as the game progresses. So, let's start this game. First, let's get a good look at our potential missions. So I have this yellow influence mission: remove all enemy control tokens from one location. That's one of the things that's going to be happening throughout the game. The Federation and Klingons will be taking control of certain spaces, right? And if I remove all enemy control tokens from one location, I would gain this mission here. Exploration, when you remove one of your scan tokens from a location by exploring it, place that token on this mission. So throughout the game, we're going to be scanning unknown territory to kind of get a peek at it, see what's there before we actually go there, just in case we might want to avoid it. If we ever go through those places and collect those scan tokens, that is how you would accomplish this mission. And finally, we have reconnaissance. And it says, secret mission, make a successful level 12 sensors test on a habitable planet in a location that your opponent explored. Okay, so we are going to begin. So first of all, once a turn, you get a free power adjustment where you could switch on the current alert status to any level of stats that you prefer for the turn. And you could do that at the beginning of your turn, the middle of your turn, your end of your turn, right? And it's not mandatory. So there is that. I'm not going to make any power adjustments. Also, the things you could do with your turn is you can make one movement per ship, and the ship's movement is all determined by its engine stat. So I am currently with a stat of 10 engines right there. You see it? 10 engines. And because of that, I can move 10. Now, how does movement work? First of all, moving to the next adjacent space is just one movement point. So I'm only going to use one of those 10 to move over here. And I found a stable wormhole. A stable wormhole. And first of all, with the stable wormhole, I'm going to read what it says. First of all, it says, any ship may move from this location to another stable wormhole location as if it was an adjacent tile. So it's almost like teleportation. I can move somewhere else across the galaxy if there's another stable wormhole there as if it were adjacent. Also, some important things to look at, this yellow banner here, the encounter. Every time you explore a space, you have a potential encounter. It says a range of numbers, in this case 1 through 4. You roll a die, and if the result is anywhere between those numbers, in this case 1 through 4, then you will draw from the encounter deck. So here we go. I'm going to roll. And I rolled a 2, so I will have an encounter. Now, if anything stops your movement, for example, you choose to take an action on the location you just explored, or B, you have an encounter, that forces you to stop your movement. So even though I had 9 movement points left, because I am going to have an encounter, I will not have any more movement points. Now, if I wanted to move through this place after having moved one space adjacent, I would look at its size, and that's how many additional movement points I would have to use to move through that space. But that's not going to happen. I'm going to draw an encounter card, and I've got here a supernova. First of all, in the upper right hand corner, you could see if these encounters give you potential victory points. In this case, it does not. It says here, a massive supernova has exploded in this region, permanently affecting everything in the vicinity. All ships in this and all adjacent locations, ignore command posts, must each succeed at individual level 10 engines. Test or take 1 damage. All surviving ships in this area immediately move 2 tiles towards their command post. If a ship lands on an unexplored location tile, it is explored as if the ship moved into that area normally, and replace this and all adjacent locations with new face-down locations. So, first of all, any ship that is here or adjacent, which in this case is only one, the Starship Enterprise, is going to have to succeed at a level 10 engine test. Well, guess what? My lead engines are already at 10. Plus, I have Montgomery Scott here, Mr. Scotty, who gives me +2. So this is already a guaranteed success for me. So I do not have to worry about it. Now, this tells me to move 2 tiles towards my command post. Well, I am as far back to my command post as I can be. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But it also tells you to replace this and all adjacent locations with new face-down locations. I'm not going to do that. Instead, usually what I do with this is I switch this with any unexplored tile that might be in the game. So I'll just do this one right here. And it gives you additional opportunities for exploration, right? Well, actually, I guess I will move back to the command post. So there's that. This kind of like sets you back. encounter that I just had. The supernova sets you back. Okay, so we're done with that. That is so frustrating. Okay, so let's move on. I think I am going to, since I'm pretty much done with this, the only action I could do now is I could scan. So scanning is a way of previewing the cards that are there to see if you want to explore this. So this is a Class K nebula. This is pretty much nothing. It's almost the equivalent of empty space. So I'm going to put this scan here. No harm, no foul if I do decide to go there. And I'm going to scan this area here. Stable wormhole. So this is the same exact space that I just finished going through now. So I'm going to just put this scan token right here. It's good to know that if I ever go through this stable wormhole, I could always move back between these two spaces whenever I want. So that's pretty good to know. And that's it for my action. Now I use these dice over here to track how many turns I've taken. So I'm going to play a 12-round game or 12 turns. This was my first turn and I'm done. Now normally the Klingons would get a little turn to do a little something something if they had ships present. There are no ships currently yet available for the Klingons, but in future rounds you see that they will be able to do stuff. So I am going to I'm going to move to this Class K nebula. Oh, do I want to? No, you know what? I'm actually going to move over here for my first movement. This is a Class K planet. So first of all, it tells you the star type. It has a G-type star. Its status is habitable because not all planets are habitable. Some are uninhabitable. And installations at this location require one additional control token to build. Installations are a very important part of the game. First of all, they create locations that you can go to repair your ship if damaged. Also, they give you additional victory points and they help with lots of the other missions. So in this case, whatever amount of control you would have to exert in order to build some of these installations, you're going to have to exert one more control. All right, so that was that. First of all, before I decide if I'm going to move any further, I've got to see if I'm going to have an encounter. And the numbers here range from 1 through 3. So let's see if I roll a 1 through 3. And I rolled a 1, so there will be an encounter, which means I will be forced to stop. And let's see what we have here. We have a temporal loop, and this is 1 victory point. And it says, persistent encounter. Your ships have been trapped in a loop of time, constantly reliving the same few hours. Only outside help can free your ship. Place this encounter card on this location. Ships may not leave this location until the encounter is complete. The next ship on the other side that moves into this location automatically rescues the trapped ship. So the way this works is you need to, the ships that are here are stuck and your other team ships can come in and rescue that for the victory point, right? To remove this temporal loop. The way I play with solo, because there's no other way to play solo, when I encounter this encounter, is I could leave this on a future turn. Not right now, I'm stuck. And if I ever decide to come back, then I'm just going to grab this victory point card or this encounter card. So that's the way I handle that. So I am trapped here on this turn, but I'm also going to roll for the Klingon presence, because every time, or Klingon encounter, every time you have an encounter, when you explore new land or new space, you also have to roll for a Klingon encounter. So let's see what we roll here. So anywhere from a 1 through 4, nothing happens. If you roll a 5, then you have to roll on the Klingon presence track. And you'll find these rules. I'll put a picture, a graphic on it on the screen. You'll find these rules and I'll explain. Now, if I would have rolled a 5, I would have rolled again to see how much influence the Klingons have there. They're present if I would have rolled a 5. And if I would have rolled a 6, I would have immediately put a Klingon ship on that location, which is probably the most threatening of all possibilities. Okay, so there's that. So I'm going to do this. Also, while I'm at it, I'm stuck in this planet for the time being. I am going to take one action to place a control token here, because this is a habitable planet, and later on this will be helpful for me to build installations. Now, installations come in 3 categories. You have your outposts, which are just a place that you could go to get repairs. You have your colonies, which are a place you could go to have repairs, but they also have a defense of 15 shield, which means if your opponents want to get rid of them, it won't be that easy. It won't be automatic. And finally, the ultimate installation you can have is the Starbase, which again is a location that you can go to repair, and it has a shield defense of 30, which means it will be really hard for your opponents to eliminate or destroy a Starbase. Now, normally to build an outpost, you need to have one control token on that location, on that habitable planet, and then use an action to turn it into a outpost. In this case, because this planet, this Class K planet, requires one more control token, I'm going to need to have 2 control tokens before I establish the outpost. So my first action was to get control, place 1 control there, and my second action is going to be a scanning action. I'm going to scan right here. This is empty space, pretty non-threatening. So I'm going to place this scan token here to show that it's been scanned by me. And also the scan tokens are basically access to look at what's underneath those whenever you want. So in the event that later on in the game you forgot what was actually there, you don't have to use another scan action. You could just look, and if your side's token, scan token, is on that tile, you can look at it whenever you want. Okay, so those are my 2 actions, and I am done with my second turn of the game. And now again, the Klingons would have an opportunity, but luckily for me, they are not yet present. This is very fortunate, but they will be eventually. And now we'll proceed to my next turn. So, at any point in the game, you could always cycle one of your command cards from your hand. You could discard one and then draw another one to replenish it. You could do that once per turn. Same thing with the missions. You could always get rid of a mission, cycle it, discard it, and replace it with a new mission of yours. I actually like these missions. They're pretty easy. Unfortunately, since the Klingons have not been a factor, 2 of them do involve the Klingons, but we'll see as the game progresses. All right, so I'm going to leave this place right here, this temporal loop, and I'm going to explore this place right here. And because I'm exploring a location that had a scan token of mine, I'm going to place this scan token on this exploration mission, which tells me that every time I remove a scan token, I place it on top of here. And once I have 2 of these, I successfully complete this mission for 1 victory point. So there's that. So I'm here in empty space. It says space, the final frontier. And I have to have an encounter roll where if I roll anywhere from a 1 to a 3, I will be forced to stop and I will have an encounter. And I rolled a 6, so I will not have an encounter from the typical encounter deck, but now I will roll for the Klingon encounter. And again, a 1 through 4 means nothing, but 5 and 6 indicate Klingon presence. And I rolled a 5. So the way it works with a 5 is the Klingons are indeed present. First things first, we're going to rotate this tile to face in the direction of the Klingons to indicate that this is a space that has been explored by the Klingons, right? So now we're going to roll, and if they roll a 1 or 2, they're going to have 1 influence here, 1 control. If they roll a 3 or a 4, they're going to have 2 control tokens here. And if they roll a 5 or a 6, they're going to have 3. All right. So we rolled a 6. So they will have 3 influence tokens here, which means getting rid of their influence or their control here would take a long time. However, having multiple control tokens in locations that are not habitable planets is pretty irrelevant, because that's where you want to have lots of control tokens, because they'll let you build the higher level installations, right? So there's that. So I'm done with that. I'm done with that encounter. But because I did have an encounter with the Klingons, I am stuck here. I won't be able to move. So what I'm going to do is, with my actions, I'm going to use 1 action here to remove this control token. And I'm going to use my second action to scan this location here. It's a Class 9 nebula. When I'm in this location, I would have -2 sensors. All right, so I'm going to place the scan token here to show that that's been scanned. And we're done with my third turn. I still have not gotten my first victory point, folks. I'm sorry about that. And there still is no Klingon ship present. Okay, so now we will proceed. I am going to... What am I going to do with my fourth turn? I am going to travel back over here. And I do not have to have an encounter here because this is an already explored land, right? This is not new space here. And because, based on my little modification of the rules, because I left this space and came back, I solved the temporal loop, which I'll add to my victory point, my victory pile. And that's 1 victory point. And because I've got James T. Kirk here, every time I complete an influence, oh no, sorry, this is not an influence. The yellow border confused me. All right, so I do not get an extra point for that. All right, so let's see there. So I moved here, and this has a size 5. So remember, to move adjacent, that uses up 1 of your movement actions, movement points. But I have an engine power of 10, plus with Scotty here, 12. So I'm going to use 5 more to move. Well, let me take a peek at these again. Class K Nebula, 1 through 4. And this is Class K Nebula. I wonder. You know what? I'm going to go to this one here. And I got the scan token here, which I will place on this exploration mission. And there are 2 scan tokens, which according to the text on the mission, means that I've solved the mission. And I will gain this in my victory pile. So now I have 2 victory points, guys. It's speeding up a little bit. And I will draw a mission card from my personal deck here to replace that. And I've got Expect the Unexpected. Have at least 3 encounter cards in your victory pile. And I already have 1. So this is really doable. Okay, now I just explored a new land. So I will have an encounter. And if I roll anywhere from 1 through 4, I will draw from the encounter deck. And I rolled a 4, so there will be an encounter, folks. So, I'll draw the top card of the encounter deck over here. And it is a shockwave. There are no victory points for this encounter. It says, an exploding star has created a shockwave of tremendous force that endangers every starship in the area. All ships in this and all adjacent locations must each succeed at individual level 10 shield tests or take 1 damage. Discard this card. So nothing necessarily good is going to happen from this, but I could prevent the bad. So I need to pass a level 10 shield. My shields right now are at level 7. I would need to roll a 3. None of my command officers permanently affect my shields, and I'm not going to discard any of them. And none of these cards help me with shield tests. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use my one and only free power adjustment during a turn to raise my shields to 16 right here and basically guarantee myself the successful test. Now, the problem with this is if I were in a situation going forward before I make the power adjustment where I need to have a higher stat in something else, I could be in trouble, right? So, for example, my sensors are disabled right now and my engines are as low as 4. All right, so there is that. So I will succeed at this, and I will discard this and avoid taking 1 damage. Because remember, you only have 3 damage as a ship. If I would have taken 1 damage, it would have moved me all the way to the yellow alert, which significantly reduces my stats. Okay, so there is that. We had the encounter. Unfortunately, this does not go to my victory pile, because that would have helped with this mission right here. But I still have to roll to see if there will be a Klingon encounter. And there is not. For a roll of 1 through 4, nothing happens with the Klingons. And I'm not complaining. So, I cannot move any further because I had an encounter. But I will place 1 control token right here for 1 action. And for my second action, I will scan this location here. And we have some more empty space. All right, we would go to the Klingons' turn. There's no Klingon ships, so they pretty much don't do anything. Oh, wait, let me remind myself that this was my 4th turn. Now we proceed to my 5th turn. Okay, so what am I going to do? I am going to go over here, because this is a free move for 1. And then I'm going to use And because this is not explored, I don't have to do the encounter all over again. But I'm going to use both my actions to remove these 2 Klingon tokens, which were the last of their kind. And that helps me accomplish this mission right here, which is disrupt the influence. Remove all enemy control tokens from one location. That's exactly what I did. So I will draw a new mission to replace that. Contact the resistance. This is a secret mission, which again, that's only relevant in a multiplayer game. Make a successful level 12 sensors test on the habitable planet your opponent controls that is closest to their command post. Okay, so right now that is irrelevant. It looks like 2 of these I need opponents to be out there for. So that's going to be tough. Okay, so those are my 2 actions. There's nothing else I could do. And that was my 5th turn of the game. Again, there are no Klingons present, so there's nothing they could do. Now we'll move on to my 6th turn. And I am going to go over here. Oh, and this is a Class 11 Nebula. My weapons would be -4 in this area. The encounter roll is a 1 to 2. So let's see if I will have an encounter. I rolled a 2, so I will have an encounter. So let's see what the deck here says. It says the Nexus, and this gives me 2 victory points. This is a persistent encounter. That means it will stay here going forward. It says an extra-dimensional ribbon of energy is crossing this area of space and may capture any ship that crosses its path. Place this encounter card on this location. At the beginning of each side's turn, move this card 1 location tile to the original explorer's right. That player decides which of the 2 tiles it moves to. If this card moves off the edge of the board, it is discarded. Anytime a ship ends its movement in this encounter location, roll 1 die. And on a 6, this ship is destroyed. The ship is destroyed, and that ship's controller adds this card to the victory pile. All right, so interesting. Whew. That is an interesting one. So here we go. I would not destroy the ship because, again, destroying the ship would lose the game for me. But what I would do is maybe I would lower its alert status and then collect these 2 victory points. So that's probably what I would do if I would accomplish that. So that was the regular encounter. Now let me roll for the Klingon encounter here. And I rolled a 6, guys. All right. So the way the 6 works is the Klingons are present. So now I will roll to see the size of the ship that they will use. And I rolled a 6. Okay, so the way it works when drafting ships is you're looking at the size, 6, and you're going to keep on drawing cards until the total cards equal the size of what you determine. So in this case, a 6. So once I have 6 total size of ships, I will stop. And the first one here is the IKS Negvar. And this is a size 6, folks. Okay, so they will start with the IKS Negvar. Okay. And let me grab the ship over here. So things have just gotten a little bit interesting. We'll place them in the same location as I. And now we will roll to see if they are cloaked or uncloaked, which makes a big difference. So if we roll a 1 through 4, they enter the game cloaked, which means we cannot attack them. And they cannot attack us either. But if we roll a 5 or a 6, they enter the game uncloaked and therefore vulnerable. So I rolled a 3, so they will be cloaked. I will not be able to attack them. So I've got this paper clip here, and I'm going to put it on this blue section here, which is cloaked, right? Not all Klingon ships have the cloaked ability, but the ones that do have these rows of blue, which you'll see basically affects everything except for their engines. Okay, so the Klingons are now present. And I still have not taken my 2 actions. So for my first action, it's a good thing that I don't have to fight them actually, because my weapons would be -4. So for my first action, I am going to roll. No, I'm going to take some control here. I'm going to put a control token here for my first action. And then I'm going to scan. I'm going to scan this right here. And this is a Class M planet. It's habitable, and the installations require one less control token to build. So that's awesome. So I'm going to place my nice little scan token right here, and I'm excited about exploring that in the future. And I'm done with my 6th turn. And now the Klingons will actually have a turn. So first of all, the first thing you do is, if the Klingons have multiple ships, you start their actions with their smallest size ship and you work your way up. And each ship gets one action. And there is a chart. I will show it right now. And basically the chart prioritizes how you take the Klingon's action. The first thing you're looking for is whether or not the Klingon ship will decloak or remain uncloaked. And that all is based on A, are they by themselves? If they're by themselves, they will decloak because they're safe. Or if they're sharing a space with an Enterprise ship, do they have the equal or greater size? Or if they don't have equal or greater size, if there's multiple ships, multiple Klingon ships on the same space with them, they'll also decloak because they'll feel safe because they have backup. In the case here of the IKS Negvar, they are of the same exact size, the size 6, as the Enterprise. So therefore, they're going to decloak, right? So we're going to move them here to their most powerful engine or shield rating, or weapons, I should say, weapons and shield rating. And now we look at the next list of priority actions, and based on what's available to them, what choices they have, they would go down this list of potential actions that they could take. And according to the list here, they would take a combat action against our ship as priority. So because they are next to our ship, that is the #1 priority. So they are going to experience combat. And this is the way that combat works, folks. First of all, we're going to compare our base systems. So their weapons are at 17. That's a really good start. Luckily for me, I had previously made a power adjustment because I cannot make a power adjustment in between battle, right? If I'm on the defense. If I'm on the offense and I haven't made my power adjustment, I can. But the Klingons in this solo variant, anytime you attack them, they get a free power adjustment to their convenience. But luckily I had made this power adjustment earlier, so my shields are at 16 and their weapons are at 17. I'm also going to look at any of my my crew members here and how they affect. So Captain Kirk has a permanent ability for weapons. However, he has a combat ability for 4 additional shields, but I would have to play him and discard him in order to get that. Now, so we're looking at our base weapons versus our base shields. They have 17 weapons. I have 16 shields. Now, the way combat works is the Klingon player will get a chance to play combat cards. So the way combat works is you draw the top 4 combat cards, and any crew cards that are here will be permanently added to this ship's crew. And the first combat card that makes sense for them to play, for the ship to play, will be played, right? So we've got Distorted Honor. It says your opponent's combat card has no effect in this combat. So that would probably be good because I could play this to get +2 to any system. So we will play that. So this nullifies any card that I would play. Therefore, I'm not even going to bother playing a card. Let's keep on looking to see if there's any crew members. There are no crew members, so we will discard the rest of this. So basically, it's going to be their 17 versus my 16. I'm going to roll these 2 dice. The red dice will represent the Klingon's roll, and the white dice will represent my roll. And we'll add them to our totals. And I rolled a 5, and they rolled a 4. So we'll add my 5 to 16, which makes 21. And we'll add their 4 to their 17, and that's 21. You need to, the aggressor or the attacker needs to win the attack or the combat test in order to successfully deal damage to their enemy. So because we tied, the defender succeeds and defends itself successfully and does not take any damage. So that is awesome and wonderful in my case. Okay, so now we'll move on to my 7th turn. And in order to move, I am stuck there with a Klingon ship, right? So, oh, wait a second. I never did what I was supposed to do. At the end of my previous turn, I was supposed to roll a die and see if I rolled a 6. And I didn't. Okay, that's fine. Because at the end of your turn, if you're still in this location, you could roll. And if you roll a 6, you successfully accomplish this mission at the expense of your ship. Your ship will get destroyed, or again, in my variation, it will just be damaged. Okay, so I could attack them right back, and we could keep this charade of going back and forth. And that might be a good idea. You know what? Because you could always do your movement whenever you want. So I could actually try to attack them first and then run away. That's not a bad idea. So let's do that. I'm going to attack them twice. I do have James Kirk, which, as I mentioned, gives me 2 permanent weapons. 2 permanent weapons upgrade, right? So that's pretty good. Do I have any other good combat cards? And they do have this emergency power, which gives me 2 to any system, and I would choose it for combat. So yeah, let's do that. We're going to attack these folks right here. So I've got 16 attack. That's my weapons. My weapons is 16. Their shields are at 15. So I have a slight advantage. I also have Captain Kirk, which is going to add 2 more to my weapons. So I'm going to play this emergency power card, which gives me 2 additional weapons for my attack. Just keep it right here. And I will replace my command card right here. And now we will proceed to the Klingons command card play. We draw the top 4 cards. First one that's relevant will be played, and any crew cards will be added to their ship. So this combat card says, as the target, which they are, if this ship is facing more than 1 attacker, it is not. So this is irrelevant for this particular scenario. So let's keep on going. Here's an officer, a crew member. We will add them to the ship. This is Clag, who gives +2 weapons, +2 engines, and +2 shields. So this will be very helpful. We have Distorted Honor. Your opponent's combat card has no effect in this combat. So they will play this. So that nullifies my +2 emergency power card that I just played. So now we're just going to be looking at our stats plus the modifications of. So now we're just going to be looking at the stats of the ships plus the modifiers based on their crew members. So they have 15 shield plus Clag makes it 17. I have 16 weapons plus Captain Kirk makes it 18. So it's just a slight advantage I have here. So let's roll these dice. And we are tied, which is great because I already had a 1-point advantage, which means I have successfully attacked them. I will deal them 1 damage, and I will indicate that by lowering them to the next alert status, which is yellow. So now they are a little bit weaker, folks, which is really good news. I'm going to put them at their highest shield level within the yellow alert status, which is still 14, pretty good. All right, so that was my first action. And let's discard the command cards that were played. And for my second action, I am going to attack again. Yes, folks, you heard me right. I'm going to be the aggressor. I'm going to attack again. I still have James Tiberius Kirk. This time I'm going to play the modified torpedo for a combat. If my sensors are at least 1, which are they? Oh no, my sensors are disabled. So I won't be able to play that. You know what? I'm going to use my once a turn ability to discard a card and replace it for another. Yeah. I'm going to discard the doctor here. My crew is fully stocked. And I will add this one here. This is only good for target. Oh, man. Okay. All right. So I will attack them one more time. There's no harm in that. So I'm going to attack them. Their shields are at 14 plus 2 because of Clag. But we're going to see if they play a card here. They've got the Opportunist. If your opponent's ship is destroying this battle, that's not going to happen. So that's irrelevant. We have another crew member, a captain, which they do not have one. He gives them +1 weapons, +4 shields if this ship is facing more than one aggressor. Okay. So that's not the case, but that could still be helpful in the future. We have opportunists. If your opponent's ship is destroyed, again, that's not the case. And we have battle stations. They'll play this card, which will give them +2 weapons and +2 shields. So their shields are now at 16, and our weapons are at 16 + 2, which is 18. So we have a slight advantage yet again. Let's roll these dice. And I rolled a 3 plus my 18 will give me 21. And their 16 + 1 is 17. So we have defeated them again. They will take 1 damage, lowering them to red alert status. I'll put them at their highest shield level, which is an 11. And that is awesome, folks. All right, so those are my 2 actions, but I haven't done my movement yet. And I will, because I want to... Do I want to run away? Do I need to fear them? You know what? I do want to get away just for the sake of it. I forgot that at the beginning of my turn, you're actually supposed to move this to the rightmost space. So I'm going to move that here. And I'm going to try to explore this and also hopefully get that. So now, if you ever want to move and you're in the same location as a Klingon ship, you need to perform an evasive or a breakaway move. And the way it works is you roll the dice, they roll their dice, and you add it to your respective ship's size totals. And if you roll equal to or higher than them, you will be able to break away. So we both have the same size ship, so it's just a matter of the roll. If I can roll the same number as them or higher, I'll be able to move away from them. So let's see here. And I did not. I rolled a 1 and they rolled a 5. So I'm stuck here in this same location as them, which means I am not going to be able to do this nexus. All right, so that was my 7th turn. We move on to their turn. And the way it works is because they are here with the Starship Enterprise, they are the same size, they will remain decloaked. They will try an attack action. So they will move themselves to their highest weapons level within their red alert status, which is a 13. That's not too shabby. Our shields are at 16. They also have +2 weapons because of Clag. We're going to look at the top 4 cards right here. And we've got reinforcements. That's irrelevant. We have Photon Torpedo. They will play this, and this will give them an additional 3 weapons. Were there any crew members here? No, they were not. So they will play Photon Torpedoes for an additional 3 weapons. And that brings their total to 13, +2 for Clag is 15, +3 is 18. I'm at 16. What do I want to do to add to my shields? As the target, use the ship's sensor instead of its shields in this combat. Well, my sensors are disabled, so that's irrelevant. Battle challenge. As the target, if the ship is facing more than one attacker, that is not happening. I'm in trouble, folks. All right, so I have nothing really that helps me. I could discard James Kirk here for 4 additional shields, but I don't want to. So they're going to have a base start of 18 and me at 16. So I'm really counting on the luck of the roll. And we both rolled the same, so they're actually going to be able to deal damage to me. So I will slide this over here to the yellow alert status. I'll put it at its highest weapons, getting ready for my potential attack on the next turn. And we are done with the Klingon player's turn. They did their job. They dealt damage to me. Now it is my 8th turn, and I'm going to use my first action. Well, first of all, this at the beginning of each player's turn slides to the right. So this is finally off the board. So there's no opportunity to get the Nexus. That would have been amazing. That would have been 2 victory points. But I am going to try to attack this guy here. So do I have any cards that are helpful? I'm going to discard a card. I'm going to discard this card. I get to do this once a turn and replace it with a new command card. And that was a dud. But that's fine. So I have... my weapons are at 16, and James Kirk adds an additional 2, so that's 18. They are going to move to their highest shields level, which is 11. But because of Clag, they are at 13. So I'm going to play no command cards. I'm just going to go at it with a total of 18. They are at 11, 13, but they're going to get to play one of these cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see here. Combat. This ship receives +2 weapons and +2 shields for each crew you trash from this ship. Interesting. For each crew you trash from this ship. Okay. Combat. +2 shields for each friendly ship in this location. So I count the ship itself as a friendly ship. So that will be +2 shield. So they are at 11, 13, 15, and we are at 18. We're still going to need a decent dice roll. Let's see what happens. I rolled a 6. They rolled a 2. I definitely won. Let's just add the totals. I was at 18 plus 6 is 24. And they were at 13, 15 plus 2 is 17. 24 to 17. And the reason why the totals are relevant is because if for any reason you actually double the amount of the roll that your opponent had and you're the aggressor, the attacker, you actually deal twice as much damage to them. And if for whatever crazy reason you triple the amount that the defender rolled, the aggressor will deal 3 times as much damage, which again, 3 hits is enough to eliminate a ship. So they will be dealt damage. They were already on red alert, and now they will die. Oh, very important, their power. If Nektavar takes damage in combat while in yellow or red alert, roll 1 die, and on a roll of a 6, the aggressor takes 1 damage. So because I didn't do that when I put them from yellow alert to red alert, I'm going to roll this twice. And for any 6 that I roll, I will be a big person and I will take some damage. That's 1 6. Okay, so I will take 1 damage. So I'll move from yellow alert to red alert. And if I roll another 6, I'm a dead man. And I rolled a 4, so I live to tell the story. Okay, so this guy is gone. Goodbye. Every time you defeat a Klingon ship, you get a victory point. So that is awesome for me. So there's that. And I still have one more action, which I still haven't done my movement. I don't have to do a breakaway anymore. Let me peek at this scan here. Ooh, a Class M planet. This is awesome. So I'm actually going to move over here. And that is awesome. And now I have to have an encounter because I'm exploring this. So let's roll the 3. There is no encounter. But now I got to roll for the Klingon encounter. And I rolled a 2, so nothing happens with them. Okay, so this Class M planet, first of all, the star is a G-type. It is a habitable planet, so I can use it for installations. And it says that installations at this location require 1 less control token to build, which is awesome because normally you need 1 control token to build an outpost, but in this case I would need none. I could create an outpost without that, but I'm actually going to use my second action to place a control token right there, and I am done with my 8th turn. All right, now we would proceed to the Klingons who cannot do nothing. We'll move on to my 9th turn right here. And I'm going to use my first action to place this right here. That's 2 control tokens. And because this Class M planet allows me to build installations at 1 fewer control tokens, normally you would need 3 control tokens in order to build the highest installation, which is the starbase. But in this case, I only need 2 because I get to do it for 1 fewer. So for my second action, I'm going to create a starbase here, which is not only a good location for repair, but it has a shield of 30. I will place this here, and every time you build a starbase, you get a victory point. So I am doing pretty good there, folks. All right, so I still have my movement. I have not done my movement. I am in red alert, so I don't know. I don't even know if I want to move. I might not want to move, folks, because I might want to stay here and repair in the future. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I am done with my 9th turn. And now, again, the Klingons are not present. So for my 10th turn, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to repair and move myself back to yellow alert status. Give myself a few more options right there. Now I'm going to do my movement. and I'm going to move over here. And this is empty space. Encounter. So let's see. If I roll a 1 through 3, I rolled a 1, so there will be an encounter. And we have tribbles. This is a persistent encounter. The rapidly reproducing furry tribbles have taken over your ship. Place this encounter card on your ship as cargo, and you have to disable 2 systems of your choice. As long as your ship has tribbles, 2 systems must always be disabled, but you can change them each time you make a power adjustment. The only way to be rid of tribbles is to use a transporter action to move cargo between ships. So one of the things you could do in this game is transporter actions, which are usually used from friendly ship to friendly ship if they're in the same location. And you need to you don't need to do a sensors test. It's an automatic transportation or transport. But if you ever are in the same space as a hostile ship, you can transport cargo from their ship to yours or from your ship to theirs, but you must pass a sensor test that outdoes their shield test first. So this guy's going to keep me very weak because for the remainder of the game, until I get rid of the tribbles, I will have 2 systems disabled at all times. So I'm going to have to find an enemy ship, get onto their location, use a transport action, and successfully pass a sensor test that outdoes their shield systems in order to undo this card and not have those 2 disabled systems any longer. That sounds complicated, especially since this is my 10th turn. I only have 2 more after this, and there is nobody here. So first of all, I'm just going to use my second and remaining action here to do this. And I never even rolled for the Klingon encounter. And it's a 1, so nothing happens. And that is pretty much it, folks. I'm going to stop it right here. This is a pretty good idea. I'm glad that that Klingon ship ended up coming later on, and I showed you guys what combat and battle feels like. Combat does not necessarily happen all the time in this solo variant. I guess if you're playing a human player who's very aggressive, you can assure yourself of that a little bit more. But also, you know, other games that I've played of this, the luck of the roll was not as much to my favor as it was for this video. I've played some games where quite often I roll the Klingon encounter die, and Klingons, I roll those 6s and the Klingons are present and they're there in my face and I have to deal with lots of them and they're all over the board, establishing colonies and destroying my things, and those make for some very difficult games. But anyways, this is it for our solo play. Give you guys an idea of what this game plays like. Give you guys an idea if perhaps this is something you'd be interested in playing yourself. Oh, that's it. Thank you so much for joining us here on When Harry Met Board Games. This is Harry. Comment down below. You guys take care, stay safe, stay healthy, and have fun gaming. Bye-bye.